Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Grace Hatfield from EHS Daily Advisor, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Faces of EHS. This is a segment where we feature environmental health and safety professionals and highlight their journeys and hear their thoughts about EHS trends and issues. Today, we are joined by Kathy Freeman, who is the Denver Operating Group Safety Director at Mortenson. So, hi, Kathy, how are you today?
Hi, good. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for asking. So, can you tell us a little bit about your position at Mortenson and what you guys do as a company?
Sure. So I run the department for the Denver group. We currently have a staff of nine that manages different activities on the projects. And day to day, it can be from site specific safety to management of safety processes and just being directly involved on job site crane plans or supporting the project for training and overall just supporting the entire group on safety. So,
Gotcha. So let's jump right in. How'd you get your start in EHS?
actually, prior to safety and construction, I actually worked in the medical field, and I worked as a director and actually taught at a college for medical assisting and pharmacology. And so safety's always been in the forefront because we've got patient safety, and then obviously when you're working at a clinic or you're working at the college where we had 600 students, you have to maintain safe work environment practices there as well. Um, During my transition, I decided to start teaching CPR and first aid on the side. And I noticed the need in the construction industry for thinking outside of the box. And I saw that I could teach a class of 12 to 15 people and make a difference in a few hours versus going to a doctor's office and certifying one or two people. And so once I got into the construction environment, I realized the need for engagement and just approaching safety or approaching response in the field differently. And so I started making phone calls to a lot of the Denver areas and reached out to a lot of the large contractors here. And just I took an Excel spreadsheet and just started calling down the list.
Hmm.
And the more I was involved with them, the more eager I got to learn more. And so I started working with a couple of people to focus on OSHA training. And so I would hire them to teach an OSHA class and I would attend that class. And then before I knew it, we were traveling to Texas or traveling to a couple other locations to provide that training. And then at some point, I had a contractor offer me a position, and I said, my background is not predominantly construction, it's been higher education and medical field. And they said, and the contractor's response was, but your approach has been very personal and
Hmm.
you tend to think outside of the box. And so I started working with a contractor, and that was a great learning experience for me. It was the best hard learning experiences I've ever had because I
Hmm.
truly had to humble myself and tell them I know the rules and I know why you work within these. I've never laid pipe or I've never been down in an excavation 25 feet deep. Why are we doing these processes this way? And just learning boots on the ground and just being
Hmm.
actively engaged. And through that, they were willing to teach me. And so I think that was a really big learning lesson for me. And that has grown me in my career. And since then, I've progressively stepped up throughout the organization. So
Awesome. So, who's been your biggest influence in the industry?
I think, there were a lot. One specifically, um, a contractor gave me, I don't want to say tough love, but we were having issues on the project and he finally pulled me in, and it was a pivotal moment in my career because I think, when we're in these positions, we try and just make change, and sometimes it feels like you're just hitting the same wall over and over. And that safety director saw me on a project and pulled me aside after we had addressed the issues on the project. And then he pulled me aside separately and said, kiddo, you need to figure out a different company. Like it's time for you to, you've outgrown this company. It's time for you to move forward and it's
Hmm.
time to take the next step. And I don't think without that, I would have, and through there was mentoring throughout the next few years, but I don't think without that honesty, I would have been as honest with myself and thought that I deserved another opportunity, because I really felt like, because I didn't have that safety background, I couldn't go somewhere else and do that. So it really opened my eyes and gave me the confidence to move forward to the next steps in my career.
Gotcha. So kind of to tack on to that, what's your best mistake and what did you learn from it?
Um, I think the best mistake I ever made was working at my prior company. We grew fast, and I didn't take an opportunity to learn to delegate. I felt
Mhm.
like in that growth, it was myself and a couple of other team members. I did them a disservice also by not delegating and by not letting them know it was okay to delegate as well. So, for example, another mentor that I had was a former OSHA inspector, and he came into the office, and I asked him to intentionally audit our safety program, but not our policies and procedures, but how we operate together as a group amongst each other, and how safety really just ties in and just be
Mhm.
a part of our team. And he observed us for a couple of weeks, and he finally pulled me aside and he said, "You need to learn to delegate." He said, "Why are you going to the store to get groceries for the job trailer? Why are you helping out here? Why are you
Mhm.
doing some of this little stuff?" And I said, "Because I'm a team player." And he said, "Yeah, I understand that, but you also need to understand where your value of your time is." And I think that was a biggest impact of, it's okay to still help and take out the trash, but I don't have to do a lot of those little things all of the time, but to learn the value of what your time is worth, and learning the value of delegating, because it makes you run more efficiently as a team too, and learning to use your resources as they should be. So I think that was a hard year, and
Mhm.
just for him to come in 2 weeks and say, "All right, we need to restructure what your team looks like," that was eye opening for me. And since then, I've led my team with that direction. And when we work together, I say, "Is that worth your time? We need
Mhm.
to think about your value to the team. You have a lot of resources here, and we need you on this. And it's not that you're better than this position, it's that we need you doing this, and you're a value to us, and you're an asset." So it was nice to be able to learn that. Um, it was a long journey to get there, but it's nice to be able to learn to leverage resources. So,
For sure. Yeah, that's really good advice about delegating your time efficiently. But so what is your favorite and least favorite part about working in the industry and would you change anything?
um, my favorite part is being in the field and learning. I feel like daily I learn something new. And not just because I'm starting a different organization. I just recently started with Mortenson 3 months ago. I think with this position, we have opportunity to expand in so many different avenues. And so I appreciate that. And I really like that. Um, on the flip side, being in a director position, you're not in the field as much. And so that for me, I intentionally schedule out field time on my calendar just to have opportunity to get out there, because engaging with the people or engaging with the trade partners, or safety is a person position. We have to
Mhm.
be personal, and we have to be intentional with what we're doing. And if you can't engage at that level, then it's not worthwhile. It's not going to be impactful. I tell the team, and it's always been my mantra, PP is more personal than you think. And it really has to be that personal approach, because that's the first boundary to PPE. So
Mhm.
that that I think is where I struggle, is making sure that I get out into the field and with intent, right? So, and be present.
Gotcha. So, what are your thoughts on safety culture and how can company leaders make safety a value in their organizations?
So I think safety culture has to be so it's always, what's the secret sauce, right? And I think it
Mhm.
has to be a team approach, and it has to be collaboration. And so, for example, the four of us that work here, the other directors, we take the approach of, we might be in a room together working, and we might have some discussions, and it's okay to have disagreements. That's okay, right? But coming
Mhm.
together with an aligned outcome, and then coming together to the rest of the organization, that sets the tone for the culture. And culture is not going to happen overnight. Culture is something that takes measurable items, consistency and communication. You have to have the full circle of what you expect you inspect, and then follow through on items, whether it be good or bad. We have to follow through. I have to be held accountable if I'm asked for something from a project team. I'm held accountable and I need to follow through. But also, if we see an issue on a project, there needs to be accountability there that we need to support them, and there needs to be follow through there. So culture really has to start with the accountability and communication and just being consistent, and following through. It takes time to do it. It takes a year or two easy to start getting the bricks paved, but once you get
Mhm.
it, it's a great ride. It's fun.
Absolutely, yeah. So what safety concerns or issues do you think need more prioritization in EHS programs?
I feel like everyone's trying to hit the mental health
Mhm.
button right now. And I feel like we're pushing all of this information out, right? We put the QR codes, we put all of that stuff out, but really, where are we making the impact?
Mhm.
And are we working with our teams to train them on, we train on reasonable suspicion, right?
Mhm.
Are we training our team members on reasonable suspicion for mental health? Are we giving them the tools to recognize that someone's not okay? And I think intentionally with the safety team, I try and say, when you're new to a team or you're new to a project, don't be intentional with doing inspections, but go out and make relationships, because you need to understand the people you're working with. And I think tooling up our teams with the ability to recognize what those what the key indicators could look like
Mhm.
would be beneficial versus just. And I agree with the stickers. I agree with pushing out items, but I think that there needs to be follow through on. Well, okay, now you've got the tools, but how do we use them, and how do you recognize people that might need to utilize them? So I think in addition to that, we've got some other things that are coming up, and trenching excavation right now is leading the industry. Well, not leading the industry, I shouldn't say that, but they're high. Trenching excavation fatalities have been the highest that they've been. So being intentional about working with our smaller trade partners, because usually it's the one-offs, the small plumbers, and
Mhm.
educating them also. So how can we educate the smaller contractors and make a difference with the smaller contractors on the safety, because the bigger GCs and the bigger companies are getting it, but how can we get that message delivered to the smaller companies? And I think that's critical, and where can we make a change in our industry there? So
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a great lead into my next question, which is what will be the impact of environmental, social, and governance principles on the EHS industry? I'm sure it's going to be hard to kind of push that out to smaller companies, like you're saying.
it is, and I think, intentionally, I participate in committees to try and make a difference in um, local areas and in the larger area. Working on certain items nationally with the AGC, you try and make an impact there. But I think here at our local or our local agencies, utilizing them can help facilitate some of the stuff that needs to go down to the smaller contractors, and getting involved at the local level is where you can really see the difference, because nationally, the things that we do nationally are going to impact the bigger companies, right? And
Hmm.
overall, right, working with AGC of America, and I'm on the board of directors now, and giving feedback from a GC, that's fantastic. And when we're working on the heat related injuries and trying to figure out what's relevant to the contractor and what's not, that's
Hmm.
going to make an impact overall. But we really need to facilitate at the local level, what do the smaller companies need, and how can we support them moving forward? And so I think working with the local agencies will be where we need to make the difference.
Absolutely, yeah. So, how do you think new safety technologies will influence the work being done by EHS professionals?
I we were talking. So I was meeting with a colleague yesterday, and we were talking about some of this. And one of the topics that came up was virtual reality and the usage of it. And I think that
Hmm.
there's an impact that can be made, and it could be good or bad, right? And I think learning how to use the technology to your advantage is
Hmm.
beneficial. And so there's a lot of technology out there, and learning what is right for your company and your organization is critical. And I think vetting it is important. That being said, doing virtual reality, walking on a beam, um, that can be an experience that a person might not ever have versus virtual reality, like how to fill out a JHA. Using the
Hmm.
tool for the right job, I think, is critical. And using iPads and being paperless in the field would be beneficial, because I think we can run a lot more efficient if we've got processes and procedures in place and able to have real time information. So I think there's some importance with that also.
Absolutely. So to pivot back to you personally, what are you most proud of?
Um, it makes me want to choke up. My team. I mean, the team that I work with, and being able to make a difference together with a group, past to present, has
Hmm.
been life changing. You make relationships that you can lean on, and that team. Not only with the companies I work with, but recently I went through an event personally that was it was one of the most difficult times of my life. And
Hmm.
my fellow safety team members came through and they supported me. And you just don't realize the impact of relationships that you have. And we all talk safety, we all talk
Hmm.
work, and we talk about making a difference in the industry. And that's our focus, right? We want to make a difference in the industry. And when that team, both my local team and then the team in the Colorado group and amongst some of the others in the nation, when they helped me through that moment, um, it was a profound moment in my life. Like, I realized how close you really get to other people, even though most of the time you think you're working and you're networking, and it really is, how can we change and make a difference in other people's lives? And it truly made a difference in my life. How really tight we are, and how well we
Hmm.
look out for each other, and the support there. Um, like I said, it makes me want to tear up, because it truly was one of the most amazing things that I'd seen. And I don't know in my career that I've had that tight of a group that I've worked with in the past. And so we really do look out for each other, and we really want to see everyone do better. And we want to support the upcoming, and we want to support each other, not only personally, but professionally. And that was an impactful moment in my life. And it definitely um, changed my outlook on a few things. So, and not that it was negative before, but I think I realized it was there, but I never thought personally it would be there. You always think that we lean on each other professionally, and I can pick up
Hmm.
the phone and call a few people, and to have people personally help me out. And it was just a phone call, but it was nice to have that. So I shouldn't say just a phone call.
Absolutely.
It was more than that. But yeah, so I think
Absolutely.
that was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot through like interviewing safety professionals, kind of like the bonds that people build. It's a really beautiful profession, I think, and it's
Yeah.
different from other industries in that way for sure. Yeah, and then my last question is, do you have any advice for people entering EHS?
I one of I think, be humble. Ask people why they do the things that they do. I think, especially when we're coming out of school or we're entering into the industry, we're afraid to ask questions. And the response that I got when I first started doing this was, "I'm so glad you asked.
Hmm.
Let me tell you how." And it really was, "I don't know why you do that, but can you tell me so that I can understand? Not that you're doing it wrong. I just don't understand this process, or I don't understand why we're doing that." So I think, don't be afraid to ask questions. And as cliche as it sounds, it really, I see it more often than not. People are very timid and they're afraid to ask questions. And I would say, speak up, because most of the time the people around you don't know. We were in a crane pig plan and a review on one of our projects a couple of days ago, and the engineer, she was asking questions that I thought, wow, that's a really good question. I didn't even think about it. And to some of the people in the room, it might have seemed um, something common knowledge, but it truly wasn't, because we had a lot of people in that room that were new to crane and hadn't been around this for 20 years. And so it was a relevant question. I think a lot of people would hesitate to ask that in a room full of people who are that experienced. And so in my mind, I was like, yes, that was a good question, you know? And so I would encourage the questions for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful to have had this opportunity to get to know you and hear your insights, and I'm sure our audience will love to hear what you have to say.
I hope so. We try and make a difference one day at a time. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
thank you. It was great.